All right, guys, you saw the offensive grades that we did in the previous video. Go check that one out where we grade each individual position group on the offense. Now, let's get right into the defensive grades for the year so far at the halfway mark of the season. So make sure you guys give your defensive grades as well. This is all up for discussion. This is just my opinion on how the team is performing. And I'll listen to what you have to say, guys. So make sure you comment your thoughts on my grades and give grades of your own. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. Let's get right into the defense that Mike Elko has once again built at Texas A&M. And boy, does it feel pretty good right now. So going into the year, we were pretty confident that this defense would at least be good. But could it be great? Could it be trending in that direction where it's kind of not just keeping you in games, but changing games by itself? And it feels like it's trending in that direction, coming off their two best games of the year versus Missouri and versus Arkansas. It's been a decent defense all year, but over the last two, it's really starting to take strides, particularly in that front seven. The back seven's making strides as well. It's improvement across the board. So let's start with the defensive line. Obviously a group that if you're analyzing A&M going into the year, it's the first position group that you're going to bring up. And that's kind of been the case for A&M for several years going now, and maybe the most touted room going into a season since Myles Garrett was in the program. It's that kind of a unit, at least by perception, but have they lived up to it? While it's not exactly a defensive line stat exclusively, A&M is currently tied for third in the SEC in quarterback hurries. While they're not top three in sacks, they're affecting the quarterback at a tremendously high level, but that hasn't been evenly dispersed throughout the first 6 games of the year. The first few games of the year, we saw teams take a quick-hitting, short-game approach to attacking this Texas A&M defense because of the defensive line. But now, every game since the McNeese game, A&M has built little by little until we saw the most dominating defensive line game to date versus Missouri. From the McNeese game until now, A&M has forced more quarterback hurries in each subsequent game. 7 hurries versus McNeese, 9 versus Florida, 13 versus Bowling Green, 15 versus Arkansas, and then 21 versus Missouri. It's getting better and better and better. And versus teams like Arkansas and Missouri, where you see teams who are more willing to drop back, that's when A&M can go to work. That's when A&M's D-line's not getting schemed out of plays. And in the games like Notre Dame, even McNeese, Florida to some degree, we saw really quick hitting passing games where teams had an extremely fast time to throw, just trying to scheme the Aggie defensive line out of games, but teams that aren't doing that are paying. And no one's really scored a ton of points on A&M just yet. But talking about this D-line, I think Nick Scorton has absolutely lived up to the billing. I mean, how often do you get a player with as much hype as Nick Scorton, the Big Ten leader in sacks, all these accolades, all the eye test, a specimen, a first-round pick? How often do they actually live up to the expectations? They live up to the hype. Well, he's doing just that. He constantly beats his man. He constantly gets huge tackles for losses. Leader on the team in sacks. And of course, we're looking at this D-line as a unit. One man doesn't make up a D-line. Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, both highly regarded players going into the year. And while they haven't gotten home as often as Scorton has, they're getting penetration. They're muddying rushing lanes. They're hurrying the quarterback. And it's kind of funny. Of course, we look at Scorton as the leader in the group. But Scorton and Stewart both have 13 hurries each on the year. And Turner's right behind them with 10 hurries himself. Very even production among your top 3 stars on the defensive line. And that just makes your D-line so solid all around. And of course, we'll talk about the running game in a second. That's been doing nothing but improving run defense. But rounding out this defensive line name by name, I think the piece that is really taking this room over the top this year and is really solidifying the room as a whole, and the numbers aren't as gaudy as the other 3, but I think Albert Regis's progression has really taken this unit over the top and made it a complete group. And he doesn't have the pop that McKinley Jackson did penetrating interior offensive linemen, but he absolutely makes up for it with his motor and with his sheer speed at his size. At 3'10", we've seen him chase quarterbacks out of the pocket with tremendous speed. It's crazy to see him move. Insane motor, insane drive, and it really gives you a complete starting 4. And of course, you still have Cassius Howell, Rylan Kennedy off the bench. Rodas Johnson got his first sack of the year, and he's been flashing pretty much every game until he's now really becoming a mainstay off the bench for the unit. DJ Hicks got himself a sack last game. We're still looking for more progression from Hicks, but maybe he's rounding a corner. Obviously, the defensive line looks really, really good. And I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to give the unit an A. And I know the sack numbers aren't insanely high right now at 13 on the year. But like I said, they're affecting and dictating the game at a very high level. We've heard Elko talk about it. If you look at the numbers, you see they're speeding up decision-making for quarterbacks. They're dictating offensive game plans against certain teams. So it's a very effective group. It's doing what it needs to do. And against teams that are willing to drop back, of which you'll see more of down the year, that's when they can really go to work. But in the run game, also getting better and better. After rating at the bottom of the SEC after the first 2 games, including the McNeese game, because the 2s didn't really clean up super well at the tail end of that game. The 1s played fine, but when the backups came in, they gave up a lot of yardage to McNeese. They've jumped to 7th in the SEC in run yards per game, including those 2 games into that equation. But it absolutely shut down 3 of the top 7 SEC rushers in the last 2 weeks, in Jackson and Green out of Arkansas and Noel out of Mizzou. I think they've held the trio, to about 100 yards total in those 2 games. And a lot of that has to do with linebacker group, safety help. A lot of that has to do with the whole defense. But the D-line is front and center in that conversation. So what we're going to keep doing is giving room for improvement for the rest of the year, because we're going to give a grade looking back, but we're also going to give an improvement note going forward. I want to see even more havoc. Don't let up. Build on what you did the last 2 games. Get home more consistently. You're getting hurries. Get home on a few more of those now, and really make this a disastrous unit for opposing offenses across the schedule. And I have a strong feeling that some of the matchups you have coming down the road, the best is yet to come for this defensive line in the pass rush. It's going to be really fun to watch. Obviously, you keep hoping for health. That's been really good for the team overall. But these guys are getting after it, and as teams test them more, they're going to get better and better. But like I said, with that running game, the linebackers have helped a lot, and it's another group that has played its best ball in the last couple of games. From Notre Dame to Bowling Green, we were getting a little bit antsy about this unit. Who's the standout outside linebacker? Do we have a guy there? But man, I'm really starting to feel like this group is rounding a corner, guys. And a lot of this just has to do with the natural progression of having a new starter take the place of such an elite player in Edgerrin Cooper. And that was always going to be, a ramp up, a progress, a process. Damian Sanford has really stepped up and become a force for this defense. His athleticism, his ability to chase players, specifically chase scrambling quarterbacks, has been tremendous in the last 2 games. He's really in his first, true stretch of being a go-to starter caliber player in college ball right now, and he's getting better game to game. And Scooby Williams, though he has experience, he's looking the best he's maybe ever looked right now. A lot of the same things you say about Sanford, you can say about Scooby Williams, and Scooby's just a more mature guy in that slot. Both of these guys bring tremendous speed and athleticism to the room, and now they're honing their game in to where we're actually seeing packages that feature both of those guys when you need a faster linebacker core. And, I think Torin York is handling that well. He had a presser today and talked about how this linebacker group is kind of developing to where you can have specific packages to attack an offense with. And that's just really, really good for this defense, man. You're becoming very versatile at the linebacker position. And you also have DeShields, who the team really likes as like kind of a third down pass rush guy that can also drop into coverage threat, because we saw him get after quarterbacks, specifically in that Florida game. You got a lot of weapons at linebacker right now, and the group is growing, man. They've really, really dominated the last 2 games. And what we were saying about the pass rush and run defense really has to go for this unit as well as it does the D-line. So everything I said about the D-line, you can kind of copy-paste that into this unit. Better gap integrity here. They're playing off the defensive line while they occupy blockers, and they're getting home more. So to grade the linebacker group, I'm going to give them a B. And that's because I have to average the learning curve they went through in the first 4 games into their really, really good, previous 2 games as a whole. So you have 6 games. 4 of those games were kind of hit or miss. The last 2 were really good, maybe B+ to A- performances versus Missouri and Arkansas. But we're going to average that down to a B. And once again, with room to improve into the A margin. So that improvement is going to come in continuing that trend that they have established over the last couple of games. They've turned a corner in a big way. Keep on that current trajectory. Consistency. Don't let up. It's a huge development for this team. So for them, it's just staying the course right now because they are on the track to becoming a really, really good unit. The athleticism, the tools are there. You have the leader in York. You have all the pieces you want to have an elite linebacker group. But it's all about chipping away and improving. Let's talk about the safeties now that we get into the back seven. I feel like we never really got to see what this safety room was capable of until Dalton Brooks finally freed himself from the shackles of that 3-game stint of targeting suspensions. I've been saying it for a couple weeks now. I think the kid's a star in the making. He's led the team in tackles for 2 straight games. His 2 full games, not including McNeese on the season, because we know he's had a bunch of targeting issues. In those 2 games, he has really changed the run defense of this team. He's really able to attack the sideline to sideline type of plays that were plaguing this defense in the early games of the season. His recognition, his pursuit, it's damn near elite right now, guys, and it's only going to get better. I mean, think about that goal line stand versus Missouri. They had a double motion with Luther Burden where he motioned one way, then motioned back the other way as a swing pass guy. He had a step on Dalton Brooks, the only guy that could make the play. But Dalton is able to reel him in and make it a tackle for loss, and that's Luther Burden. One of the most lethal weapons with the ball in his hand in the conference, and Dalton Brooks can make that play. You have a guy that can do that, and that's a really, really incredible piece to have for a defense. But the other safety, Marcus Radcliffe, is also making a huge impact in a similar way, although maybe he's a little bit less polished than Dalton is. Now, they're the same age, but I think Dalton is just a little bit ahead of him overall as a player. But Radcliffe brings size, he brings length, he brings pop, he hits hard, and he also impacts the running game at a very high level. And both of these guys are sophomores, man. They're young dudes. They're learning, and they're getting better and better. Brooks is in his first college action as a starter-level player outside of the bowl game where he was really good, and now we're seeing it game to game. Radcliffe is taking a huge jump in competition, going from San Diego State to A&M, and they're just getting started, man. And by the way, you still have Bryce Anderson coming off the bench, man. I mean, he was dealing with some nagging injuries on the year, but really, it just seems like it's hard to keep Radcliffe and Brooks off the field right now. Now, Anderson has a passing down role on the team, and he plays in passing scenarios as kind of like the single high safety at times. He plays in the dime package quite a bit. He's a great substitute right now. And you know what he is. You know what you have in Bryce Anderson. But you also have a very, very serviceable and physical Trey Jones to round out that rotation. Just a major couple of weapons off the bench there, man. I'm going to give this unit the grade of an A-. I think they've been solid all year, and I think they got even better when Brooks, got into the fold. But the room for improvement, and this is going to go for every unit on the secondary, you've given up at least one huge bomb play off of a bust pretty much every game. You've been a little bit susceptible to play action. That's been cleaned up a little bit, but you're still giving up at least one a game. So I think this room has that to work on. But it's so new together, and as a unit, and with a new coaching staff, which you could say about every position group, they're just going to get sharper and sharper. This safety room has some insane upside, not only for this year, but for the next couple of years as well. It's a really, really exciting group. Elko thought it was going to be a strength dating back to spring when he first got here, just looking at the group as it was. And I think it's really, really showing to be true right now. I don't know if you guys agree with me with the A- grade. I know that might be a highly debated topic, but I really think the safeties are helping turn this running defense game around. Let's get to the corners, and we're going to loop nickel into the corner discussion. But talking about the outside corners first, how nice is it to look at a corner room and say, oh, we have a guy we feel good about covering anyone. We have a guy that we can stick on any wide receiver one in the conference and feel pretty good about it. You have that in Will Lee. Elite coverage, never out of a play, has the length, has the instincts, has the physicality. He's a weapon, man. He's a guy you can stick on any top receiver that you face, and maybe they're going to get theirs on him at times. It's just how the game goes. I mean, offenses are going to get their own eventually. But having Will Lee against them is pretty much as good as it's going to get right now, guys. We have to feel really, really good about that. Also, how nice is it to say that you have 3 viable options at corner at any given time, that you're comfortable playing against any team? You have that in Lee, Ricks, and Thomas. Think about where we were last year. You barely had one, and Chappelle was hurt a lot last year. You didn't have a lot of help from the other positions last year. Just feeling so good about these outside corners. What a turnaround from last year, man. And now, talking about the nickel, you still got a ways to go there. That's probably, unfortunately, the weak link of the defense as a whole right now. And that's coming by way of sudden change with Tyreek Chappelle, unfortunately out for the year with injury. You feel good about the unit as a whole in the secondary, but it does seem like you're working through things with Hill entering the program. Couple of busts, maybe every game having a bust or two. Has some positive moments. I was really happy with how he kind of chased sideline to sideline against Burden and that receiver core against Missouri. Pretty good run support from the nickel, but it's just the busts that keep coming up over and over again. We'll see what happens there. You can see like the upper echelon receiver rooms maybe taking advantage of that nickel position. And actually, overall, you do see those, like the last two receiver groups in Missouri and Arkansas who have some good bodies out there. They have their moments against the secondary. But that's absolutely something you can live with as long as you keep improving and you remain solid. And once again, you prevent those huge bust plays that seem to come up once a game. So to grade the corner room, since I'm lumping nickel into the equation, I'm going to give the corners a solid B. And I think if it was just the corners alone, it would be a B+. Because Des Ricks, really good player, but he's still working through things. He's still susceptible to make a mistake every now and then. It's not a perfect unit, and how perfect can you get in the SEC? But you feel pretty good going to battle with the dudes you have out there. Now, the improvement, again, giving up a busted game. Receivers are having some moments against them like Arkansas and Missouri. But I do expect this room, relative to the rest of the team, to be one of the units with the most room for improvement on a given year, just because of how much new you threw at this room. Of all the position groups on the team, you look at the D-line, you added Scorton. You look at the linebacker, you bring back one starter. You look at the offensive side of the ball. You started the year with 4 returning starters on the O-line. Now Naboo going down changed that. But the DB room features the most new, and on top of a new coaching staff. So you're a B now, but we see the tools that this room has. The secondary unit as a whole, safeties, nickel, and corners, they can become an A unit for A&M by season's end. It's very much on the table, but you gotta stop giving up the bus. You gotta, hone in the play action stuff that gets you every now and then, especially that nickel spot. You gotta hone that in. So that's gonna be a room for improvement. So A- for the safeties, a solid B for the nickels and corner combined. All right, that's going to do it for the defensive side of the ball. Let's quickly go through a couple special team spots. I wanted to grade Randy Bond because I know he missed a couple versus Florida, but I'm knocking on wood. He's really been nails outside of that, and I think he's been better than a lot of people would have expected on the year. So I'm going to give Randy Bond a solid B+, but I'm knocking on wood. We're just going to chalk that Florida game up to a bad night at the office. He's been solid. He's a guy I trust right now, but I'm knocking on wood like Mike Elko. Punter, Tyler White. Don't change, Tyler. Don't change. No room for improvement. The only A+ I'm giving across the team is going to be at the punter spot. What a weapon. What a unit. Tyler White, legend in the making. Now, I want to do the return game as well, and I'm actually going to give it a B. I know you haven't had any explosive returns on the year. I know you haven't really been getting positive yardage on returns, but I am just very, very pleased with Terry Bussey's decision-making fielding punts. What he is doing is something you really don't appreciate until you don't have it. The ability to physically field punts, but also to make the correct decision to give your team the best possible field position in returning punts. He's not letting stuff that's kind of at that 8 to 12 yard line get behind him, and if it is, he's letting it go, and he's communicating with his teammates. That is huge. Now, you get a return or two, this is going to bounce up to an A. But right now, I'm very, very happy with how Terry Bussey is fielding punts, and you really haven't gotten the opportunity to field many kicks this year on the kick return game. But guys, that's going to do it for my midseason reviews for both the offensive and defensive side of the ball, as well as a few special team nuggets. Like I said, give me your grades for the team. If you missed the offensive one, go back and watch that. But if you want to comment your offensive grades on this video, go ahead and do that. Definitely comment your defensive grades. Do you agree or disagree with what I had to say? Either way, man, it's all about improvement. It's all about the next game, the next step, the next practice, the next weight session, the next film room session. And it sounds like, based on the pressers we got on Monday, that this team has hit the ground running in this very, very pivotal week versus Mississippi State. So I'll see you guys really soon with a pregame video. And then, of course, I'll see you guys on the Thursday live show where you have a chance to call in, give me your score predictions for a chance to enter that Hall of Fame right there. We only have one entry there. Only one guy's gotten the score right this year. You will become immortalized on that board, written in Sharpie if you get the score right. So tune in Thursday night, 7:30. Be there. And I'll see you at the game. I'll also be live streaming the Mississippi State game here on this channel. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe. Turn the notification button on. And I'll see you guys real soon. Gig 'em.